Do you ever wonder how a country with fewer people than Charlotte ends up hosting some of the largest companies in the world? Like, how does a tiny nation turn into a global finance or tech powerhouse? It's not about luck or size, it's about strategy, and these dudes know what they're doing. And today, we're breaking down how small countries quietly outmaneuver the global giants, and how they're pulling in multi-billion-dollar businesses without getting flattened in the process. Now, I will be honest with you. There was one strategy class in my MBA program that I actually stayed awake for, and this one thing stuck with me. When countries can't win with size, they win with clarity, policy, and purpose, and finishing it off with execution. Take Ireland and Apple. Apple didn't just end up in Ireland. They chose it intentionally. Why is this? Because Ireland checked all the right boxes. A corporate tax rate of 12.5%, a smart English-speaking workforce, full access to the EU market, and EU means European Union. And then lastly, a government that pitched like a Fortune 500 CEO. And here's a side note. If you've never sat through an international lecture with 3 hours of sleep and then 2 strong cups of coffee, don't. It's rough. But as far as the partnership, Ireland didn't just throw tax breaks at Apple. They built a stable, reliable system for managing billions of dollars in international revenue. And Apple was smiling so hard, and nothing can hold down Apple's smile when they heard about this. They end up parking tens of billions of dollars in Ireland. And then the European Union launched an investigation. And when Apple fought it, Ireland fought with Apple. Because this wasn't just a tax move, it was international strategy. This is a tiny country using clarity and leverage to punch way above its weight. Now, let's get into how they pulled it off and how others are doing it too. Why do countries even try this? It's because small countries act more like startups than superpowers. They move fast and think globally, and they speak the language of capital. One concept that we covered in class, international diversification. Basically, when you can't export cars or oil, you export access. That basically means business-friendly tax codes, streamlined digital systems, investment incentives, and legal transparency that doesn't make you sweat bullets. And suddenly, a country that no one was checking for becomes a global hub for finance, tech, and logistics. But I'll tell you this, if you're still awake and mildly impressed, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. It helps get more people to find Money Talks Media. And it also keeps me caffeinated enough to keep giving you the game. All right, let's keep going. Here's the playbook, what they actually offer. I'll break it down in 3 steps. Step 1, competitive taxes. These are not shady loopholes. These are strategic initiatives. And then that 12.5 Ireland's tax rate that I was talking about earlier, that didn't just attract Google. It rewired their economy. But step 2, make it ridiculously easy. That company registration, it took hours, not weeks. And company registration is not easy, so I know they were grinding. And then if we talk about permits, these are not buried under 6 layers of pending review. And then step 3, create zones of efficiency. These are special economic zones with free trade hubs. And these are basically places built for businesses with less friction and faster returns. And it's the opposite of what it feels like to renew your driver's license. The real ones doing it right. Let's give props where props are due. Starting off with Singapore, a masterclass in logistics, law, and infrastructure. They built for scale and then opened the doors. Next up, Ireland spoke the language of global capital, literally and financially, and then became big tech's European Union's home base. And then Luxembourg, tiny, mighty, and filled with financial influence. And last one, Estonia. Digital citizenship, e-governance, remote incorporation. This is basically if a country decides to run as a tech startup. Infrastructure matters, big time. You can't just say that you're business friendly, you have to run like it. And the best countries back it up with fiber optic internet, efficient airports, clean custom processes, and transparent legal systems. They don't just talk global, they operate global. And in a world where buffering costs money, speed wins in this game. I completely understand this is a lot of heavy, big words, but bear with me, I'll smooth it out at the end. You're not the only one with a side hustle. hustle, because that leads us into the government hustle. Smooth, fast, and friendly. If there's red tape, these countries don't use scissors. They treat global investors like VIPs. They'll wine and dine them, they'll read their kids a bedtime story, they might even invite them to the family cookout. I'm just joking, but this is what they really do. They provide startup grants, business incubators, speedy approvals, and investor programs. We actually called this in class. It's public policy aligned in economic ambition. They don't just give you an extra plate at your family's cookout, but they roll out the economic red carpet. Alright, this may sound all cute and all, but nothing's perfect. Let's not romanticize this. Small countries face real trade-offs, such as smaller domestic markets, talent shortages, and extremely vulnerable to global demand swings. And I know we didn't talk about China, but if the US implemented tariffs, then they'd literally be shaking like a chihuahua, scared for their life. But in this video above, I go into all the details. And then if they lean too hard on foreign companies, they risk the dreaded liability of foreignness. Yeah, that's a fancy MBA term for this could bite you in the butt and backfire. Small countries are smart because they balance agility with resilience, and they don't put all of their economic eggs in one basket. So why do multi-billion-dollar companies keep going small? For global access, predictable policy, streamlined costs, and a strong legal infrastructure. They're not just saving on taxes. They're buying stability. Large companies think long-term. I encourage you to think long-term as well. Whether it's in your business, your career, or even your personal investment portfolio, think long-term. All right, so what does this mean for you? When you think like a bigger country, here's what happens. Countries aren't just governing, they're positioning. They act like brands. They don't chase, they attract. It's just like in your life, bro. Stop chasing, she don't want you. And countries don't try to be everything. They get laser focused on what they do best. And you can apply that same playbook to your personal life. And I'm gonna give you 4 more gems and we'll wrap this up. Get clear on your own value. Remove friction from your process. Speak the language of an ideal customer. And operate like a global player, even if you're starting local. Because at the end of the day, size doesn't guarantee success. I know what you're thinking. Get your mind out the gutter. But clarity, execution, and strategy does. Because this stuff really matters. But drop a comment below. Which company do you think is playing the long game best? And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell. Because when money moves across the borders, you already know I'm watching. And I'm breaking it all the way down for you. But take care. I'll see you in the next one.